What's going on, everyone? In today's episode, we're going to be talking all about the Jerusalem artichoke, where to find it in the wild, because it does grow natively here in Michigan, but not only that, but how to grow it in your garden. Let's go. So when it comes to Jerusalem artichokes, they're not actually an artichoke. They're more closely related to a sunflower. They look a lot like a sunflower, but they're not a sunflower either. They're a native flower that grows here in Michigan in the Great Lakes region, and it actually is a flower that produces a tuber. Now that tuber has been harvested for tens of thousands of years and grown basically almost like a potato. However, the potato has starches which give you carbohydrates. The Jerusalem artichoke, on the other hand, has a type of starch, but it's an insoluble starch. It's known as inulin. It's an insoluble sugar that the body does not properly digest. And a lot of people have started using it in sodas as kind of an artificial sweetener. And that artificial sweetener can be found in sodas like Olipop, which is pretty cool. So Jerusalem artichokes also get called Jerusalem fartichokes simply because, and we're actually passing by them right now. We're gonna make a U-turn to go grab those because they grow in ditches all over the place. But Jerusalem artichokes are called Jerusalem fartichokes simply because of the insoluble fiber, the insoluble starch. It commonly is used as a prebiotic, which is a great way to host beneficial bacteria in the gut and increase the gut's microbiome. And that's why a lot of soda companies like Olipop, they'll put Jerusalem artichokes inside of their soda. So when it comes to Jerusalem artichokes, you can find them just about anywhere in Michigan and the Northeast. They grow native here. I like to always recommend people look in like lowland areas that hold water throughout the year. We're obviously on a super busy road and they're growing here just like crazy. As you can see, they're all over here. They've been planted by nobody. They probably were just here, dropped from some animal. The seeds got dispersed and they are growing here. And as you can see, they love this kind of wetland habitat here. It's kind of lowland, it's in a ditch. You can find them just like any other habitat where you might find asparagus. They share a very common kind of habitat to asparagus. They like really well draining fertile soil, but they like it to be wet throughout the most of the season. And so you're gonna find these Jerusalem artichokes pretty simply, and they're really easy to identify. You just look for what looks like sunflowers, basically. And these sunflowers, well, sunflower looking flowers, are, as soon as you find these big, super tall, about 5 to 7 foot tall flowers, you know that you've got a Jerusalem artichoke. Now they also share a really similar leaf pattern to a sunflower. They're kind of they're like a scratchy, fuzzy leaf. You'll notice the hairs on the stems. If we're to pull it up, we'd find, check it out. Look at this, the little tubers. These are the tubers that you can boil up just like potatoes or take into your garden. Obviously make sure, like, this is just a county road. This is not owned by anybody. This is totally safe to forage. You can totally forage this without any huge issue. Just make sure if you find it and it's like on someone's property, you ask first. But these are so easy to forage and they have just these awesome little tubers here. I'm not gonna pick too many. I'm gonna leave some for some other people, but I'm just showing you how simple it is. If I had a shovel to dig these up, it'd be a lot easier. Oh, there's a really nice one. There's a super nice one right there. The thing is, in this really hard compacted soil, I mean, it's well draining. You can see the sand, right? It's really sandy, but it's below that. I mean, it's county road. Like, it's pretty compacted past that. So they keep breaking, but I don't want to take too many. I don't want to break, I don't want to take all their habitat. And obviously it's wonderful forage for things like honeybees. It's also very beautiful. So I don't want to take it all, leave some for the other foragers, but you could take these into your garden, throw these in the ground and cultivate them. So these little tubers right here are awesome. I absolutely love them. And like I always tell everybody, when you're foraging, it's super important that you only take really what you need. When it comes to these Jerusalem artichokes here, you only need 1 or 2 of them to grow a bunch in your garden because they're gonna replicate and they're gonna multiply just like potatoes would. But the great thing with these is the fact that because you only need like 1 or 2 of them to start your garden off with, you can leave the rest for other people and you don't have to take a whole ton of them. but they're also really resilient because of the fact that they're native. And when you're growing natives, compared to growing something like a potato, potatoes have been domesticated for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And that leads them to be very disease prone, very pest prone. And one of the great things that if it was quieter and a little more secluded, I would have talked a little more on site about the Jerusalem artichoke. That's why we're heading to the garden. If you would have noticed, there was almost no pest pressure at all. There also was very little disease, if any. And that's simply because of how disease resistant and pest resistant they are, given that they are natives. And so it's always one of those things where, like anything, there's pros and cons. Some people simply grow these just for the beauty of them, and that's fine. They also can be really, they can be very value added in the garden. And so I want to talk a little bit about them because I think you guys should know more about them and consider adding them to your garden. All right, so if you want to grow these bad boys in the garden, they are really simple. You can grow either in ground or in containers. They're not that picky. As you saw, they're growing on the side of the road. When it comes to soil, the soil needs to be really well draining and loose, but they can handle some kind of imperfect soil as well. Again, side of the road. They were not growing in really fertile, rich soil. It was loose and well draining, but below that, it was just gravel. I mean, it really wasn't a picturesque gardening spot. And so when it comes to your soil, just make sure it's loose and well draining, not for necessarily the plant's health, but for the tuber development. The looser and more well draining that soil is going to be, it's going to ensure those roots are going to spread deeply and quickly throughout the soil, giving you more tubers. The second thing is when it comes to fertilizing, it's not a requirement because they're pretty resilient. They grow in just about anything. You're going to get a healthier, larger plant, which will then yield you healthier, larger tubers, because tubers are the store of this year's energy for next year. And so if you want larger harvests, naturally, fertilizing with something like a high nitrogen fertilizer is going to be beneficial. It's certainly going to help. When it comes to harvesting, you want to make sure that you grow them in a place that you don't mind them kind of taking over, because you're not going to grow them as an annual. It's really important. You don't want to grow them as an annual. You want to treat them more like a perennial. And that's because these are tubers. These are a perennial tuber that will multiply the more you leave in your soil. That does mean that it could potentially take over a small area, 100% possible. But when you have these in your soil, you harvest what you need or what you want, and you leave the rest for future years. And because they're so resilient, they're going to grow up. They're going to provide beauty for your whole garden, for birds, for insects, for pollinators. They're going to provide all that beauty. And then in the fall, you dig them up. Now, a common question gets asked, if I leave these in the soil all winter long, will they be sweeter because of that? And the answer is no, because again, these produce very little actual sugars. They produce inulin, which is an indigestible sugar. It's an indigestible fiber or carbohydrate. And because of this, they don't actually get sweeter like, say, a carrot would or a beet would when you let it go throughout winter. So there's really no benefit to like letting them stay in your soil, other than the fact that when you harvest them, they have a really short shelf life. They're not gonna last on your countertop or in a root cellar for 2 or 3 months like a potato would. They go bad very fast. And so it's really recommended to only harvest what you need in that exact moment. And that leads me to my final thing, is how to eat these. As I said, you can boil them like a potato. You boil them or roast them like a potato, and they are eaten. Now, the amount that you eat is going to really, you want to kind of ease into it. It's going to kind of dictate on how accustomed you are to eating something like a sunchoke. If you go full hog and eat like a pound of them, your stomach is absolutely going to be reeling in pain. But if you only eat a small amount of them, accustom your body. It can be a wonderful addition to not only you're increasing your palate, adding a different variety of foods to your table, but also, like I said, the biggest benefit is helping your gut microbiome, which is so important. Helps your immune system, helps your digestion, helps your overall energy levels and well-being. And also, like I said, just like we care for our soil with beneficial bacteria and fungi, when we treat our gut the same way, your body's going to be rewarded as well. And so adding these to your diet can be very, very beneficial, and you can do it in a variety of ways. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you all learned something new. And again, I want to stress before I sign off here, make sure these you can forage these just about anywhere. You can find the tubers online, but why? We got these for free on the side of the road. Just make sure wherever you find them, you A, make sure it's legal to do so. B, make sure you leave some for other people and other wildlife and for future years. And the final thing you see is make sure you can identify them exactly as Jerusalem artichokes. They're really simple to identify, but always, as a disclaimer, anytime you're foraging anything, make sure you know exactly how to identify it before you eat it so you don't end up in the hospital. So as always, this is Luke from the MIgardener channel, reminding you to grow bigger. Take care. Bye. Hey, thank you so much for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed, consider clicking this one. You'll probably enjoy it just as much. I want to thank you for your viewership because without it, this channel would not be as amazing as it is. Also, if you haven't subscribed, consider subscribing. It's free and we upload videos every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. We also have vegetable seeds, fertilizer, or tools. If you need any of those, consider visiting MIgardener.com. Links will be in the description box below. We've got you covered. And as always, we'll see you all in the garden. Take care. Bye.